news today that Trump is initiating, in fact, a formal investigation into the so-called poison pen, the autopen that did so much damage to this country. Who the heck was signing off on this stuff? We know it wasn't this guy.
And there's also been a lot of discussion recently about your mental and physical capabilities while you were in office.
You can see that. I'm mentally incompetent, and I can't walk, and I can beat the hell out of both of them.
Do you want to reply to any of those reports, and also to the fact that there are some Democrats who are now questioning whether you should have run for re-election in the first place?
Why didn't they run against me then? Because I'd have beaten them.
Do you have any regrets?
No, I don't.
I have no regrets. I'd do it all over again. Yeah. Well, your party has a few regrets, I'm guessing, Joey boy. What a disaster. Look, everybody knew. Everybody knew he was a disaster. We saw it over and over again. We get in trouble for this, right? This was one of the most unbelievable things I ever saw. So I used to say to Drew, make sure you keep that one handy. He said, I better not take questions.
Everyone, please move this way. Super Tuesday, sir. Do you have a message for voters? Thanks. Come on.
I mean, look at him. If you're listening on Spotify, thank you. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you subscribe, like, share, all that good stuff. I'm just looking at him. And so I mentioned this for our audio viewers. If you're seeing this, you see he is in very, 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 very bad shape. And he's in very bad shape. Why? Because, well, apparently now we've learned he had an advanced stage of cancer, and we don't know why. Nobody was willing to tell us about any of it, or why he didn't get the proper testing so that somebody knew about it. Instead, you'd see him looking for the invisible chair. There was a chair, forgive me, because they'll call me a cheap fake again, right? There was a chair, but he was just always out of it, and you'd see it over and over and over again. So Donald Trump is coming along saying, you know what? We need to get to the bottom of this. We need an investigation. We've got to figure out exactly how this all happened.
Or he's a radical left person. That's what the executive branch is for. And you have checks and balances. But we had millions of people pour into our country. Many, many criminals poured into our country. Murderers, mental institutions from all over the world being emptied out into our country. And if we don't get them out and get them out quickly, could lose your country very easily. This is a bad, that anybody would allow this to happen to our country. With all of the things, we took over inflation, we took over some wars, we took over a lot of problems that didn't exist when I was president. None of it existed. We wiped out ISIS. Other than that, we had no wars. Putin was never going to hit Ukraine. Israel would have never been attacked. That attack, as you know, Iran had no money. They didn't have money for Hamas. They didn't have money for Hezbollah. They had no money whatsoever. That wasn't going to happen. All of these things that happened weren't going to happen. You wouldn't have had inflation. So it's very sad when I came back. But the thing that is the hardest is that they allowed 21 million people into our country. And many of those people are stone cold criminals. They moved their criminal population into the United States. And of all the things that, are bad, I solved inflation, I believe, already. I got the fuel prices down. The fuel prices came down. That's one of the reasons they screwed up the energy. They screwed up the cost of gasoline and oil and gas. And you had tremendous inflation, the greatest inflation probably in the history of our country under Biden. And when people said, but the economy was, no, the economy was terrible for the people because they couldn't afford the energy. And the energy brought everything else up. Energy is the big deal. But with all of that, we solved that already. In 4 months, we solved it. $1.99, $1.98 gasoline. First time people have seen that in a long time since my term. But the hardest thing to solve is millions of people pouring into our country, many of whom are criminals. Because remember, these countries are smart. Their leaders are very street smart. They're sending the people that they don't want. They don't want the people that are there, that are law-abiding, that are productive, that are working hard. They want people that are in jails. We have them. They allow them to come in. And I always look to the other side, like, why would somebody do something? In business, I try and study, why would they want to do this? Why would they want to sell it? Why would they want to buy it? One thing I can't figure out is what would an administration, what were they thinking when they allowed millions of people from prisons all over the world, not just from South America, Venezuela, all over the world, from the Congo in Africa. Hundreds of people, thousands of people from the Congo, rough prisoners.
It's true. Like, what were they thinking? What? Cheap labor? But then you're putting them up in hotels, right? And giving food cards. That doesn't make any sense. Like, what were they thinking? Oh, I see. They wanted to rearrange Congress a little bit. And they thought maybe you just keep putting them up. Hey, New York, you know what? Come here, stay at the Roosevelt Hotel. I mean, come on. You know who got into this recently was Tom Homan, who actually had some thoughts on exactly why they were putting them up, say, at the Roosevelt Hotel at $500 a night instead of giving them a bed in some ICE facility. I mean, because in his estimation, then suddenly, there was no reason to have to move. Why would you ever move from your daily maid service hotel, for goodness sakes? What incentive do you have to do that? You could just live off the dole, but why would you want to be living off the dole like that continually? Well, he had kind of an interesting take on this. I want to share it with you because it's worth hearing, and he'll do a better job phrasing this than I will, guys. Let's listen to Tom Homan here, if I can play this for you. I think I can. And he's saying, listen, there is a reason, ladies and gentlemen, there is an absolute reason why they made a decision. They made a deliberate decision to actually not put people in ICE centers, but actually give them all kinds of privileges. All kinds of privileges. Why? Because somehow that would make it more hospitable for more people to come here. And I'm still like, but why did you want them? I mean, I think Trump has said this over and over again, and I understand and agree. Maybe we can't bring that. We'll do it tomorrow. But he said it. Tom Homan is like, there's a reason they did this. And the reason they did this was actually because they wanted to make it easier. And you just have to ask what exactly Trump was asking. Why? Why make it easier? Okay, so this is what gets you back, of course, to the autopen. This is what gets you back to the investigation that Donald Trump is now engaging in, because when you have all these questions and you say, why were they doing this? Somebody was getting something out of it, and we need to know who those people were and why they continued to ignore all it. Holly made the point.
And they did it for power, and they need to be held accountable as well.
Well, what about this idea that there was more activity, autopen activity, in the last 100 days than there were in the first 3.5 years? Or a staffer saying, well, if he's reelected, we'll let him, we'll put him in hiding and bring him out every once in a while to show proof of life. That's not very reassuring. That sounds to me like people fully understood that they were going to be in power and in control, and he was not. That, to me, is a constitutional crisis.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, one of the worst constitutional crises of our country's history, and we've just lived through it. I'd like to know. We need to find out who actually signed off, so to speak, on all of those autopen signatures, on all of those pardons, all of those clemencies. You remember, Sean, who he pardoned and who he granted clemency to in the final months of his presidency after they lost the election. I mean, it's an unbelievable rogues gallery of crooks and criminals and terrible people, rapists and others. I mean, who actually was doing that? We know it wasn't Biden. He didn't know anything about it. So, yeah, we've got to figure out who was actually in charge, because it sure as heck wasn't Joe Biden. And I just come back to the fact that the media knew this. They knew it. They lied about it. They betrayed us, Sean. They betrayed this country. They sold this country out for their own political power. These people can never be trusted again.
No, definitely not. I mean, definitely no. I mean, we began the show talking about Disney, and Whoopi Goldberg, she's the one who immediately, you can't vote for Trump because if you vote for Trump, he's going to lock you up. He's going to lock up all the gays. He's going to lock up, and we're like, what? Right. For what it's worth, not that Trump would ever mention this, but, his Treasury Secretary is playing for the other team. So I'm just saying, she's kind of nuts when she makes these assumptions, or calling him anti-Semitic when, for goodness sakes, his own grandchildren are Jewish. his daughter converted. I mean, it's this kind of crazy, crazy, crazy stuff that really starts to wear on people, which is why Bob Iger's saying, hey, can you lay off? It's not playing with the audience. And they're like, no, it's doing great. It's doing great. Well, it may not be playing with the audience, and soon it's not going to be playing with all of America, because you guys are not going to be on the air anymore, because the FCC is going to say, no one in America trusts you. Therefore, those ABC affiliates should not have to pay this crazy money. So yeah, the autopen is a big deal. We need an investigation into that. And the media, I don't know what they were doing. I mean, I couldn't believe it. I go back to this Smoot-Hawley, the Smith-Mundt Act, right? That had been put in place that enabled the media to use all this money overseas to promote a certain narrative that the CIA wanted promoted. So during Obama's years in 2013, in a defense bill, they actually did the repeal of the Smith-Mundt Act, which enabled all those media companies to take all the money that they were sending for narratives overseas and turn it back on the people here in the United States of America, ourselves. And perhaps that's what unleashed it, because there was some kind of money at stake. And so you needed to push this narrative. But I'll tell you, the American people are too darn smart for it.